This is a detailed review of the Circuit-Test DMR-6550. So this multimeter is, Circuit-Test is a Canadian brand, but obviously you can tell from looking at this, this is very familiar. I believe the OEM for this is CEM, which is the OEM for a ton of brands like X-Tech and Southwire and a bunch of the other ones had even in this shootout. So this one is the most expensive one in the shootout that isn't the wild card. The Fluke was the most expensive, but I intentionally included it just to see what you would get if you attempted to get a name brand for the same price range-ish, but obviously ended up being a lot more. It's $70. And it's 6,000 counts display resolution, so it's on the slightly better half. The accuracy is 0.5% plus 2. Measure resistance to 60 mega ohms, frequency to 10 megahertz, capacitance to 4,000 microfarad. One thing to note, this one, and as well as the Southwire, I think I forgot to mention that during the Southwire individual review, but this one has a lower input impedance than the other ones. It's 7.8 mega ohms, so that's just something to keep in mind. Okay, so the unit came with the multimeter and the probes, obviously, and it also came with a manual and a K-type thermocouple, and well, that's about it. As far as the manual goes, it's a paper booklet. It's not terrible. So, one thing though I noticed, I was not able to find any information here about... Oh, okay, yeah, never mind. I was going to say, I couldn't find anything about auto power off, and then... Why is this not focusing? It says that auto power is off after 15 minutes, so that'll be good to know later. Wonder... Actually, yeah, I don't see anything that says APO on the screen or on the display. Excuse me. So I don't think there's a way to disable the auto power off, which is unfortunate. But this doesn't do any kind of data logging or anything like that, so I don't think it's really that big of a deal. Okay, so let's talk physical build quality. It feels rugged, and it's so tiny. It's probably the smallest, or no, well, the Innova is smallest, but I don't count that as a part of the official part of the $50 multimeter shootout. The only other one's probably the UEI. It's very close to this size. It's thinner. This one's a little bit thicker, but this one's probably a little more narrow. It's very, very small multimeter. So it feels super rugged. It's got a good integrated holster that's, I don't know, it feels okay. And being so small, I feel like it makes it a little more rigid. I hate, look at that. I hate the freaking kickstand on this thing. And it doesn't come out very far, so I'm not intentionally doing this, alright? It's just the bottom is very narrow. It's not very rounded, actually. It's somewhat flat, but kickstand's narrow, and it's such a high up angle that it's really hard to turn this thing. And it's got the worst range switch I've ever felt, but we'll get to that. Yeah, so kickstand, horrible. I hate it. It's one of the worst ones for sure. It's among the worst. It's impossible to get out without using a tool. It fits so tight. I'm sure you could machine or grind this down somewhere. Something's catching and making it a little harder to open, but yeah, it's not great. And yeah, and it's not very stable. You could, if you kind of push downwards when you push a button, you could, no, it's still wanting to, and that's as high as I can, I mean, that's as far back as I can get that. Yeah, so kickstand, almost worthless. Probes, typical CEM probes. Any of the ones that are OEM by CEM have these really plasticky ones. Actually, they're very similar to the Unity ones. Also, they're just cheap and plasticky, but they're very pointy and sharp, so that's good. Good strain relief on these compared to some of the other ones. It's actually a little better than the Uni-T strain relief. The cables do have ratings on them. Ratings and brand and all that stuff, so that's good. It's decently pliable for being the PVC type and not silicone. And the plugs are actually kind of long. That's a little absurd, but I mean it works. And it's got good, well, yeah, it's got somewhat decent strain relief. But yeah, the probes are kind of cheap, but it's kind of par for course in this price range. Okay, possibly the worst range switch I have ever felt in my life. Look at that. Can you? I'm gonna hold it up next to the microphone. Can you hear this? So from the sound of it, and this is the shocking thing, from the sound of it, this sounds like it's a ball bearing style, which usually feels so good. But this one, it's like the one I got wasn't greased or something. But look how much I can move it. I'm trying to get this thing to focus, I'm sorry. Look how much I can move it within one range. I mean, it is just, if you move it quickly, it feels okay, but that does not instill much confidence in me, how much play it has within each range. It's not great, but maybe I got a dud. This feels like there's just tons of friction in there. I feel like this should have some grease or something in there. Maybe that would make it better, but yeah, and you know, maybe it's because I've been using it more. This is starting to feel a little better than it did when I did the shootout. It's feeling like it's spinning a little more freely, but it still feels pretty shitty, to be honest. So, yeah, not a big fan of the range switch. Sorry, Circuit-Test. Okay, let's talk about some measurement capabilities. Okay, it'll do volts AC and DC in separate ranges, which I like. Resistance, and then you got continuity and diode test in its own range. Capacitance, frequency duty cycle, and then temperature, you have Fahrenheit and Celsius in separate ranges. And then current for AC and DC. This might be the only one where AC and DC current are in separate ranges. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but this one does not do milliamps or microamps. If I would have noticed this to begin with, I wouldn't have bought this piece of crap. So that's bad. That sucks. I can't believe I didn't notice that. So yeah, that makes this pretty worthless for electronics use. And honestly, it makes it really not any better than... well, okay. So if Circuit-Test were ever to watch this, they're going to think I'm just intentionally picking on them because I hate Canada or something. And I don't. I love Canada. I've done Canada fishing trips. I have friends in Canada. This is horrible for the price. $70. It's one of the most expensive ones, and it's also one of the least capable. Horrible feeling range switch, which, like I said, could just, maybe I got a lemon. It doesn't have a millivolts range. It won't do milliamps or microamps. It's just, we'll keep going. I'm gonna try not to just rag on this thing the entire time, but it's just, there's so many things I don't like about this, and the kickstand is just worthless. Okay, let's talk about the display. It is 6,000 counts, so it's got that going for it, and the update rate seems to be pretty good, like about 3 a second, and then a really nice purplish hue for the backlight. But unfortunately, this is a crappy one that only goes for 10 seconds, and that just infuriates me. What's the point of that? Seriously, what is the point of that? I really don't understand that. But it's got the typical tall, exaggerated, like stretched vertically stretched digits that you find on all these CEM OEM ones. I'm starting to learn this. People are cluing me in on the things to look out for, and yeah, it does bug me a little bit. I prefer standard proportions when it comes to the digits, but it's easy to read, it's got good contrast, and for how small the unit is, it's actually got a pretty big display. And the backlight, aside from only lasting 10 worthless seconds, it's actually pretty good. So yeah, I can't complain too much, I guess. But yeah, it could be better by having a backlight that lasts even 30 seconds would be fine. And give it a dedicated button. I know it's a small meter, but get rid of the hold. The hold is just the worthless type that freezes the display. So yeah, just make that a dedicated backlight button, and then I would be less inclined to complain about the fact that it lasts 10 seconds, because I could just hit the button and then the backlight comes on instantly. But yeah, not great. But at least it's got good contrast, it's decent sized, but whatever. I could rag on this thing all day. Let's check out the battery / fuse access. Okay, so it's got some good going for it. It has 2 machine screws that go into metal nuts. Okay, well anyway, as soon as you get that open, you have access to the one pathetic fuse that it has in it, which is glass and crap, and the 9-volt battery, which at least... Oh, nope, never mind, I spoke too soon. It's a soft snap, I hate those. And obviously brand-wise, it's the Dave Jones favorite, Golden Power. Yeah, it's I'm happy that you can access the fuse, but it's like the worst possible fuse, and I don't even know if a typical fuse puller would fit down in there, so... But, yeah, I guess at this point we... take it the rest of the way apart and see what lies beneath. Okay, I got it apart. So here's the back, 0 shielding. Here is the the insides that ASIC should look very familiar, because it's in every one of these same things. It's coming back to me now. This thing is just full of analog stuff. Look at all that. Lots of sketchy through-hole resistors just bent over. It's really not great. And looks like these are the 2 wires for the backlight. Lots of through-hole caps. Not sure why they couldn't have gone with SMD. At least the battery snap goes through for means of strain relief to the other side. So it looks like those 2 are MOVs, and that's a PTC, and then you got input power resistor. It does have solid type binding, I keep calling them binding posts, input jacks, but it doesn't have a milliamp range, so all it has is a 10 amp current range, and the only thing they have protecting that is a stupid glass fuse, and it's the tiniest freaking possible one. It's just unacceptable. So yeah, it's very disappointing that they thought that that's good enough. Don't remember that, but that's a little sketch. Solder blob is very close to that screw, and obviously I think I've already taken the board out of this once, so that might be why that's all scuffed up like that. But yeah, it's very well. It's mostly the only complaint I really have, honestly, as far as input protection, is just the fuse. Why is this not focusing? If they would have gone with a ceramic fuse, even a smaller one, it'd be a little better, but the fact that they went with that's a little sad. But at least it's a small, really rugged case, and it's got a good channel for blast protection, so... But really though, there's just no excuse. Why would you go with a glass fuse anymore? Even the Chinese guys are all figuring out that they should go with the ceramics, so... from a Canadian brand, I'd expect better, but... yeah. Every multimeter's got its flaws, so I guess that's a flaw with this one. I guess I'll go ahead and pull the board out, and we'll take a peek at the other side. Alright, we are in, so there's really not a lot going on the inside of the front of the chassis, but So you can see the solid binding posts, or, man, I keep calling them binding posts. The input jacks are molded into the case, and they're the solid type, so those are very good. Okay, so the board is out. And, yep, really nothing going on the front. But there's one screw I left in here. Partway through removing all the screws, I realized that there were a ton, and it's because 4 of them, I believe, went to hold this unit on. Actually, I'm not going to bother taking it off, because it looks like everything's on this side of the board, so I don't think there's really anything to gain from looking underneath there. But there's a shot at the top. Well, as always, if you have requests for specific angles or shots or anything, just let me know, but I think that probably will suffice. I'm going to go ahead and put it back together, and we'll do some measurements with this thing and see if it's got something good going for it. Alright, I got it back together, and it wasn't too terribly hard to put back together. I think it's time to take some measurements. I have it set to volts DC, and we'll see how accurate it is. Really slow auto-ranging, but it is 6,000 counts, so you do get 3 digits to the right of the decimal point when you're basically measuring anything under 6 volts, so that's good. It's a little off, but I think it's, what is it, 0.5% plus 2? Yeah, that's within spec, so it's okay. Okay, we'll measure, or, well, not measure, but test the continuity checker. Beeper is very loud, annoying. First thing I would do if this were my main meter would be to open it up, put tape over the speaker. It's not as slow as some, but it's definitely below average. It's pretty slow. Yeah, it's pretty slow, so it'll get you by, but yeah, I could definitely use a faster continuity checker. This one's not that great. Ugh, it's so hard to turn the range switch without knocking this thing over. Okay, let's test the auto range speed for resistance measurement. Yeah, it's pretty slow, probably a little slower than average. Yeah. Slow. Let's see what the display update rate is for resistance measurement. Now that's actually pretty good. That looks like it's close to 3 a second. Yeah, not bad. So I think it's time to do some measurements of precision resistors. Here's 1K. Yeah, it's dead on once it gets there. It just takes forever to get there. Here's 10K. Yeah, that's right on the money also. 100K. Yeah, not bad. Now, to show you why this isn't a good pick if you're buying it for electronics use, I'm going to put it in current measurement mode, and it only has one, it doesn't have, milliamps or microamps range, and it's just has a 10 amp jack, so I'm going to stick it to my 1 milliamp precision source, and that's as good as it gets. So yeah, that's why this basically is not a very good choice for electronics work. And considering this is one of the most expensive ones out of the entire shootout, I just, not good. We will see if this multimeter can make up for its, well, all its shortcomings. And it's got a pretty big list of them. Hopefully it can make up a little ground by having a good diode checker. Can it light up an LED? Yes, it can. I don't know if you're able to see that. So it lights it up, but doesn't show the voltage. But I would imagine then that if I hook it up to a red LED, it'll do both. Yep. Ugh, that range switch. Range switch makes the same kind of sounds the BK Precision's entire chassis does. That being said, though, the chassis on this one actually feels good. It's just the range switch sucks. Will it be the one freak that can measure into the picofarad range? No. Okay, we'll do 100 nanofarad. Most of them can. Yep. Okay, we'll do 1000 microfarad electrolytic. Yes, but extremely, extremely slow. Okay, the only thing left is to see how it does with its frequency measurement. Okay, it is advertised to be able to do 10 megahertz, so I have it set to 10 megahertz. Here we go. Yep, it'll do it. Just for shits and grins, let's try 20. Nope. So I set it to 60 hertz. Let's see if it'll measure the duty cycle correctly. No, that's pretty sad. That's 60 hertz. It's unable to. Let me try something. There we go. Okay, now it's working. I don't know what the deal was. But yeah, it does what it's advertised as far as frequency measurement. Okay, well, now that we've done some measurements with it, I think I'm going to go ahead and hook this up to the bench power supply, and we will see how it behaves when the battery gets low. Okay, I have it hooked up to my bench power supply, and then I have the unit set to voltage measurement, and I have it hooked up to my 10 volt reference, and then I'm just going to turn the voltage down 100 millivolts at a time, and then we'll see if a low battery indicator comes on at any point, and then we'll also see if the voltage measurement fluctuates at all when it starts to get low. The ideal functionality would be for it to give a low battery indicator, and then before the reading starts to get all wacky, it just shuts itself off. So here we go. It's 8 volts even. There's 7 volts even. Looks like the battery light came on. Okay, so at 7.1 there's no battery indicator, and when I go down to 7, little battery indicator comes on. There's 6 even. There's 5 volts even. 4 volts even. 3 volts even. 2 volts even. Let me make sure it'll turn back on. Yep. So we're down at 2 volts and it's acting bizarre. So that's not ideal. It should basically not let itself turn on when it gets to that point. Or say low bat. So we're at 2.2 volts, it's reading correctly, but we get to 2.1. Is it? Yeah. So it looks like the unit basically stops operating correctly when it gets below 2.2 volts, but it doesn't shut itself off. It'll still turn on. That's crap. So let me try 2.1 volts, which when I started hitting buttons, it started freaking out. It's at 2.1 now. See if it turns back on. Yeah. As soon as I hit any other buttons, it freaks out. So yeah, not the best behavior, so that's kind of bad on their part. But we'll say 2.2. Okay, 2.2 volts, everything works correctly. except the backlight doesn't come on. But at least the measurement, we'll still count that. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and hook this up through another multimeter so we can read its current consumption. Okay, so I now have this powered, actually, okay, now I have this set back to, the bench power supply set back to 9 volts, which is powering this through the Voltcraft, which is measuring current consumption, and it is drawing 3.3 milliamps, which is not terrible. That's kind of right in the middle of the road. Okay, and I think the manual, what did the manual say? 15 minutes, I think. Yeah, it is a 15-minute auto power off, so I'm gonna go look up some data sheets for 9-volt batteries and then try to get you a rough estimate of what the battery life will probably be. And in the meantime, hopefully the auto power off shuts this stupid thing off, and then we'll see what it draws in its sleep state. Okay, so I'm back, and it has been more than 15 minutes, and the POS is still on. And just to show you, user manual, Circuit-Test DMR-6550. Circuit-Test DMR-6550. This, let me get it to focus, sorry about that. This meter automatically shuts off after 15 minutes of inactivity. I have been sitting here for, what, almost, it's been 20 to 25 minutes-ish or so. Well, hell, you saw what time it said on here before I left to go let it shut off. Stupid thing's still on. I don't understand how they got that wrong in their own manual. So does inactivity mean that it can't be measuring anything? I mean, I really don't understand what it means by inactivity. But obviously, if it's measuring something, it doesn't shut itself off. I don't know. I don't think that I care enough. I mean, I'm not... Spoiler alert, I'm not going to recommend this multimeter to anybody, so I guess there's no point in waiting around for the stupid auto power off to shut off. But I imagine it's probably within an acceptable range, considering its normal use is only 3.3 milliamps. I imagine it'll be down in the microamp range, but don't care enough to wait another 15 minutes without it plugged into anything like my current, or not my current, my voltage reference. So yeah, I guess I'm gonna put all this crap up and then we'll do a summary. Okay, so the Circuit-Test DMR-6550, what do I think of it? Honestly, I don't like it at all. Let's say this multimeter were priced $20. Or, okay, even $30. If this were a $30 multimeter and, you know, they aim this at just general household use, I would say that it's not that bad. But for electronics use, even at $30, it's worthless. It can't do microamps. And it doesn't have a relative function. That just, to me, makes this basically worthless, and it's partially my fault. I should have done my homework. I just assumed for $70, surely this would have microamps. And, I mean, considering everything else that's able to do, and 6,000 counts display resolution, it just blows my mind. How can it have all this other stuff and not be able to do microamps? I didn't even know such a thing existed, and that's why I accidentally bought this, because I didn't think twice. I just put it in the basket and bought it. But come to find out, can't even do microamps, and that makes this thing just pretty much worthless for electronics use. So for anyone looking to buy this for general use, should you buy it? No. No way. $70 for one that can't do microamps? No. Spend $25 and you can get the Radio Shack one, which blows this out of the water. I think it has lower display resolution. I think it's only 4,000 counts, but it's got ceramic fuses. It even has spare fuses in it. It'll do microamps, millivolts. It's just a better overall meter. The only thing this one beats it in is display resolution and capacitance measurement range, because the Radio Shack one only goes to like 60 or 100 microfarad. But at least that one's got, if I remember correctly, I believe that the Radio Shack one has relative. Yeah, confirmed. Relative. So it's not that this is a horrible multimeter. It's the fact that it's the most expensive out of the shootout, except for the Fluke. But the Fluke was a wild card. I intentionally picked an overly expensive one. It's the fact that it's one of the most expensive, and it is the most expensive if you don't count the wild card, the Fluke. And it can't do microamps, which makes it worthless for electronics use. So it's more expensive than the electronics ones, the other 14. Well, technically 13, Innova's another one. It's kind of in the same boat. It's not any good for electronics work, and it still costs more than the rest of the multimeters in this bunch. Hopefully I can do enough cutting on this video to shorten it up, because at this point my camera is saying 1 hour and 20 minutes, so sorry about that. I will see you in the next video.